Well, hey folks, it's your old pal King Washminator. Welcome back to Total Party Skills. I have a few more thoughts after sleeping on it overnight and having my morning cup of coffee about the whole Kyle Brink. We need less people like me in D&D, and they can't get out fast enough. All that stuff. If you're unfamiliar for some reason, and I'm the very first D&D YouTuber to tell you about this, one of Wizards of the Coast executive producers went on a podcast and about an hour and a half into it said some really stupid shit. And I'm inviting you, the audience, to join me in participating in a very low energy, passive kind of experiment. All I'm really asking of you is to just keep your eyes open and watch what happens over the next couple of weeks in regards to how this story unfolds. To steelman Mr. Brink's position, he was an hour and a half into a podcast. You do start to get tired, and your brain is a bit more likely to slip and say something that it might be closer to your opinion, but is also something that, is not the most politic thing to say. I would think you don't get to be in a position of executive producer of something like Dungeons & Dragons by being a total idiot who doesn't know how to talk and present his thoughts in various kinds of situations, up to and including interviews. And so the benefit of the doubt is, it's length of time in there. He's himself is a self-conscious white dude being interviewed by three black halflings, and they ask him a question that makes him feel awkward and on the spot, and he just kind of flails around and ends up saying this thing because he doesn't know how to say, I don't know what to tell you guys, it just is what it is. God forbid anyone would ever just give an honest answer to anything. But, instead he puts his foot in his mouth, and as going forward and how this story could potentially be turned and twisted and weaponized or not will reveal a lot, I think, about exactly what happened there in that podcast and whether or not he floundered or did something intentional. If it was a stupid mistake, him floundering, Wizards of the Coast disavow, this is not to reflect the opinions of the company, that kind of stuff, then we could probably expect the story to just kind of not be brought up very much. As is, there's an awful lot of YouTubers who, for various reasons, aren't going to really want to get into this story, and it's been kind of amusing seeing a few YouTubers who normally don't touch this sort of topic kind of be forced to address it because it's a little in your face. Once again, 2 months in a row now of Wizards being a little too in people's faces with what they're actually really feeling and thinking on the inside. Or this is some sort of kind of massive Psy-Op kind of thing that's going on. As we've been aware, Wizards, one of their big top-cited excuses as to why all this stuff happened with them trying to, get rid of the old OGL and put out a new, more restrictive OGL is, they got to crack down on offensive content, and they got to make sure that D&D is the most inclusive thing ever. So, the reaction to them saying that, though, didn't really go over very well. Most of your D&D fan base, upon hearing that they were taking away people's rights to write certain things, and they were being told, like, well, we're just trying to stop the hateful content, and most everyone kind of looked around and was like, I don't really... Is that it over there? No? Weird. No, it's having trouble finding the hateful content. So, that justification didn't really, gain them the normal traction that it does. Star Wars, their official Twitter come out and, make some sort of statement about their racist fan base. At least they can, point to a bunch of people who are like, Star Wars is so anti-white, and then they can point to that and see, look at these racist bastards. And, they're just yelling at us for our supposed anti-whiteness, kind of shit going on. Well, if this story of this incident that Kyle Brink did, if it does actually start to gain traction amongst the YouTubers and the commentators, and more people start talking and agitating about Wizards of the Coast, people in power at Wizards of the Coast saying such like blatantly racist things to say, then a couple weeks from now, Hasbro and potentially anyone in the media they can, pull some strings on, can then, point at that and look at all these white people complaining about Dungeons and Dragons. Does D&D have a white male problem? And then they can kind of see, look, we were right. We were right to try to get rid of the OGL, to protect people from hateful content, and to make sure that D&D is inclusive. Because look at all these angry white people yelling about how bad D&D is, when they're the ones that kind of created the situation to create that. Anti-marketing, negative marketing, however you want to phrase the idea. I'm hardly the only one to observe that there is this kind of weird free publicity kind of thing that goes on with a lot of, movies and entertainment and such over the last half decade, where, you agitate the old fan base by, saying how terrible the old original fan base is, and which is also a cute way to try to get the kids is, that old thing, if you remember, a lot of the marketing in the 90s for kids stuff is always on your parents are just too lame and square to understand what it's like to be a 14-year-old and want a thing of yo plays Go-Gurt, bro. And so the modern version of that is man, you don't want to be playing that old racist D&D like your lame-ass parents. We got this cool new D&D that'll let you play like a tiefling of any color. And, kind of shit going on. It's a way to market to youth by making the older version seem bad to them. And it kind of works. Maybe. It's certainly been something that just is recurrent, and if it's all a coincidence, what a mighty coincidence it is. And, this is just kind of a close kissing cousin to that same kind of thing. They need there to be a racism problem going on in the community so they can then point to that racism problem to justify their actions to try to defeat the racism problem. But since that racism problem wasn't there, they got to throw a stone in the pond to try to make one. And so, as I said, all I'm asking of you is not to necessarily agree or disagree with anything I'm saying here. Just watch. Does the story go away, or does it get turned into something closer to Gamergate, perhaps in tone, where it then starts, because people react negatively to what Kyle Brink said, they will then use that reaction as proof of the thing that wasn't there for them at first. They need us to hate them in a way, so they can then rally the people who are just reflexively trained to see things a certain way, to try to bring them into the fold. Look at what we're doing in the effort of anti-racism. You have to support us, because all these angry white people that we angered, I don't know. Like I said, there's a Steelman argument where the guy was just kind of flummoxed and perhaps a little bit too deep in a podcast, and just scrambled and just said the first thing he can think to come to mind that he thought would please the people that he was being interviewed by, which is still probably also a sign that he's cowardly and kind of racially motivated himself on some level or another. Just can't say, yeah, I'm sorry, that's just who happens to own the company. I have nothing to do with that. Clearly D&D has been trying really, really, really hard for a while to make a big show of how much it wants to include people. So, the top executives, what does their coloration matter? They're not blocking people from playing the game. And does everyone have a right to be a corporate executive over something that they have nothing to do with? I don't really care about the colors of the people working at Wizards of the Coast. I would just like it if the people in the executive positions were actual fucking gamers and people, who understand the hobby and actually are invested in the thing that they're producing, and aren't just all these people being brought from video game companies and Microsoft and stuff. why not bring Mike Pondsmith in? Throw a bunch of money at him and make him the top chief of Wizards of the Coast. He's got decades of experience doing his own game and running his own company. He knows what he's doing. He's managed to get Cyberpunk, deals with Netflix and stuff to get the CD Projekt Red, and he knows how to play the game. Maybe with the Wizards of the Coast resources behind his back, he could play the game even better. At least he's actually a product of the gaming culture that would then be turning around to try to cater to, and I'd rather have that than like any white person just randomly picked out of a hat from another company, because obviously they got problems. So anyway, I guess that's about that. Like I said, just keep your eyes open and watch and see how this story continues to evolve over the course of the next week or two. And until next time, stay waspinated.